Those look like the. Okay. Yeah, the oops, didn't have the outside music on. Yeah, that's now on, and it looks like they can't hear us, so that's a big plus. Yeah. Okay, so I'll give everyone a minute to. I'll give everyone a minute to get caught in. Okay, where's?
Oh, they hear us. They do hear us.
Oh, good. Of course they do.
The person whose name I can't repeat in here without demonetizing the whole thing can hear us.
Yes. All right. Hello, and welcome everyone to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and with me today is uh, Karis, Charbroil, Care Bear, Keep, Crane.
We're doing this now. We're doing this.
Oh, I am. I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, I'm doing it. So with us today is Crane. Um, yeah. So just settle about 15 bets for me. How do we pronounce your name?
This is for Steve. Steve McCrae. Karis.
Karis.
Yes.
Well, if he wants any solace in this, I don't get your name right
Steve,
either.
love him to death. He pronounces my name in about 16 different ways.
Yeah. Well.
I think he's listed them by now.
It's more fun that way. So, thank you all for joining. And the good news is,
Side chat says Care Bear is going to stick. I
Yeah,
can see the Discord now.
that's our head mod who has deliberately chosen a name that if I even try to
I
utter it, we
cannot
get
see it here.
demonetized. Yeah, he will get demonetized if I even try to say his name. It's just like, and he's the head mod. I'm surrounded by trolls. I don't know why. I'm a perfectly nice guy. Um,
If you're surrounded by trolls, then
isn't
you
that right,
invite them
Charis?
on your show.
Yes. Um, okay. Okay. So,
Insert my usual responses here.
yeah. Okay. So, welcome. It's been 2 minutes, and already it's a dumpster fire. Um, so, yeah, and I did figure out, of course, what I did wrong with the sound. I'm still getting used to the new sound settings. The good news is I figured it out. The bad news is I have a tendency to figure these things out after the problems, and like not like during or before, which would probably be just like really swell. It's almost like it's my first rodeo.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I'm pretty sure everybody came here to see a dumpster fire. Hopefully, a writing show breaks out.
yeah, yeah. That's why I go to fights, is in case a hockey game breaks out. So, yeah. So at any rate, yeah. So welcome everyone to on writing, which is we're going to try to do this. I think at least once a month on Thursdays. It depends really on how long Karis holds out. I'm hoping we last at least 45 minutes. And so let's see. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Your sound, and there seems to be an issue with the sound. Of course.
That's for the best.
Okay.
Count your blessings.
Yeah. I think counting my blessings is probably going to be, I think, the key word for the day. All right. So on writing. So that's it. So I'm a writer. It shocks a lot of people. It shocks them, especially considering how verbose I am. But I follow the Mark Twain principle on that one. But
which is for those in our audience who are not in the know.
So now he said, I apologize for the length of this letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one. I get verbose only when I'm short on time. Some who
have tried to write short poems will understand the challenge that comes with making it make sense, making it sound good, and keeping it very short. That's why Twitter can be such a challenge to many. It takes a certain skill to work within such a little space. Take that as you may. So I can understand what he's saying.
Yeah, well, and I used to really loathe Twitter for that reason, and I'm learning the benefits of learning how to be contrite, how to write concisely in a very small space. But the problem is, I so rarely have the time. If I was really writing full time nowadays, I'm producing full time, and before that, I was doing the codex full time. So it's been a while since I wrote. I kind of gave it up for a little while. I'm still only flirting with it, but my last book was cray cray. That was fun.
Interesting title.
That was not the title. That was my summation of the general experience of working with that guy. For the
sake of the audience and then getting to know you, what is the title of your last book?
The title, the only book in general that I talk about is The Water Thief, which was it got loads of reviews, which was really good reviews. The quality of the reviews was matched only by its catastrophic failure commercially. Sold a few thousand copies. But Midwest Book Reviews said it was required reading for everyone who questions authority in this country. Kirkus Reviews said it was ruthlessly engaging and entertaining. Should be required reading for every high school student in the country. It got... let's see. I have a few of the awards up there. Let's see. That was Bronze Book of the Science Fiction Book of the Year from Clarion. No, it was Science Fiction Book of the Year, which is the gold, and then silver for just overall book of the year, 2012. Kirkus Best of 2012. It got loads. of Bookworm Best of 2014. I really want to know how and why it got Bookworm's best book of, actually I think it was book of the year, Bookworm 2014, 2 years after it was published. I didn't ask. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, an award's an award. I'm just like, you guys do realize this thing was published 2 years ago, but okay. But then I teach writing. I haven't taught it in a while, but I used to do a workshop for about 10 years. I did a workshop on the business and craft of writing. And a guy had walked in. He was a prison psychologist and had just an amazing story about his experience. He started out, he didn't want to be a prison psychologist. He was a psychologist. He worked at a mental hospital in Massachusetts. They closed all the mental hospitals. He ended up working at a Supermax facility, which is where most of his patients ended up because there was nobody caring after them. Now, I knew he was a little unhinged, but he turned out to be really certifiable, and we tried to make it work. And I spent a year and a half. Well, I spent a year. It took 8 months full time to rewrite the manuscript and get it so it was publishable, and then we tried to go forward from there. It was just nightmare after nightmare. He got one bad review. He threatened to murder the guy, which I thought. Listen, I've been upset at bad reviews, but that was. And I told him, look, how about you not talk about the book? You don't try to publicize it. And then he started sending it off to people who self-published a whole bunch of books. I was like, you realize they could just take our name off and then put his. It's like, don't send it anywhere. Don't do nothing. I got this. I'm talking to agents. I'm getting the whole 9 yards. Finally, he ends up one day we're at a Chinese restaurant having dinner, and he's drunk off his ass, which is pretty usual for him. And
I'm sorry, what?
And I'll try not to dominate, but I figured this is a good story. So I'm sitting there, and this was
Well,
I
you
don't know,
said,
8 years ago.
drunk off their ass, so I figured I'd just take a shot.
Oh, you just take a shot of, yeah, well, exactly. Like I should too, but I can't drink. But so we're sitting there, and he goes, okay, Nick, I did something. You're going to be a little upset, but hear me out. I was just like, oh fuck. What did you do? He goes, well, I did send the manuscript to 2 people. Okay, you sent the manuscript to 2 people. What 2 people did you send it to? He goes, the first one was Bill Cosby. This is about the worst criminals on the yeah, that's the appropriate response. I was like, you sent this to Bill Cosby. You just pitched it over. You don't even know. You just pitched it over the wall to him. He goes, well, you know that Ennis died. I was like, oh yeah, that was his son. A car thing. He goes, no, it was a criminal. Now he's all about prison reform. So I sent it to him. I was just like, oh dear Lord. He goes, yeah, and for some reason he returned it unopened. Just like, oh, thank God for small favors. He's like, don't you realize, Nick, if Bill Cosby liked this book, now this was before the Bill Cosby thing, but I was just like, you can't just be pitching this over the wall to celebrities. Well. No, that would not have aged well, but that believe me, that aged better than his second target. So then he's like, but the second one was really brilliant. I was like, okay, who was the second guy? No. He goes, I sent it to Charlie. Charlie. Now he figures I should know who this is, and I can't think of any Charlie. Do you mean Charles Manson?
Charles Manson?
Yes. I sent it to Charles. Nick, if he said he liked this book, the media would be sucking our cocks like there's he literally said that at the Chinese restaurant. I'm sitting there going like, how many of the waiters and waitresses are looking at us right now? And he's just going off the whole 9 yards. And I was, okay. I was just like, so you sent the manuscript. Did you send him the one that's properly formatted? He goes, of course I did. We're trying to be professional. Just like, the one that's properly formatted that has my name and address on the top because I'm the one that the agents have to contact, that's the one you sent to Charles Manson? He goes, well, yeah. Just like, okay, good. I'm now, normally you try to be 6 degrees of separation removed from psychopathic mass murderers. I am now 5 too few degrees from this. This is a change in my life. So I said, okay, well, what did he do? He goes, you wouldn't believe what he did. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I think I'll probably believe it. What did he do? He came back to me and started talking about the coming apocalypse and the death of the middle class. I was like, okay, he's crazy. Why wouldn't he do that? He says, Nick, don't be like that. He's not crazy. I'm a psychologist. I know better. He can pull that shit with anyone he wants, but with me? He's going to pull that shit with me? It's like, wait. Are you in a fight with Charles Manson over whether or not he's crazy right now? He goes, well, it's not a fight. I mean, I got back to him and said, don't you ever fucking talk to me that way again. I was like, fuck. I just want to write, okay? That's all I want to do is write. I don't want to, like, be having conversations with, like, Charles Manson and then other serial rapists like Bill Cosby. I mean, why am I... Oh, yeah. So, that was, and I guess there's lag, and I can try to look into it. I don't know why there's lag, actually. Truth be told, I haven't any clue as to why there's lag, but I could try to look into it. I do apologize for the lag, and I will see what I can do, unless there's... No, I don't have a immediate solution to that. So anyways, that's it. I mean, after that, I burned a lot of agents to try to get this book. They'd actually offered to take a couple of my other books, but I said, nope, this is the one I'm working on. I love that book. It was available for a brief period of time. It's called Confessions of a Sin Eater. It's not available anymore. He and I just he actually tried to have me removed from the title, or have my credit removed, and the whole nine yards. Almost like kind of stealing a YouTube channel kind of thing. It's just like, it just suddenly remove somebody from the thing. So I got really, yeah, so he and I aren't really on speaking terms, and right now the book, it's unfortunate because I spent all told 2 years of my life and a lot of work on it, and I just believed in the project. I still think it's a spectacular project, and I think the book did get a number of awards as far as it went, but it's dead in the water. So since then, I started what?
Why don't you tell everybody where they can access it?
Both of these books, Amazon. This one you can't get on Amazon anymore. I do have a PDF. Every now and then I'll let someone have that. But the Water Thief is still on Amazon. So you can just The Water Thief by Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and you can find it there. But that's it. So I haven't written too much. I still did classes up until unfortunately started to get kind of sick a couple of years ago, so I stopped doing the classes, kind of getting back into it. But now I'm a little nervous because sort of like here I am talking about writing again. It's been a while. I do love writing, but it's just been is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
COVID writing,
Yeah, yeah.
COVID. It is what it is.
Yeah, well, they're both painful diseases that you can't do anything about if you've got them. Some people ask me sometimes why I write. It's the only answer I have is because I can't stop. That's about the best I can do. So
any collaborations? Do you have any of those that you've done that you've got going in the works?
I have one I did. I don't know. I want to talk about it. So I did a collaboration. So I also did start writing because I like philosophy, psychology. I started a project called the Humanist Codex. That's still up. I spent much more time on this recently than that. But no, we did. I had a theist, really nice woman that we collaborated on and did a couple of pieces for the Humanist Codex. And she's a very nice lady. Unlike my last partner, was well grounded. Just a delightful human being. I think her name was S.J. Thomason, and we I saw the attempt to keep a straight face there. Christian apologist. She and I did a piece. She and I also aren't on the best of terms, but yeah. So I've done a few collaborations. I do enjoy collaborations, but it's hard to find projects that work. I don't mind editing. I used to do editing for a living for a little while. So I usually only do it for people whose projects I really get behind. I'll edit something for free, or someone will throw something at me and tell me, Nick, gee, what are you thinking? I honestly think writing is something that, for the most part, everybody should be doing. I'm a big fan of having people write. I think it's a great different mechanisms are used and I do voice dictation, which everybody knows, but I don't actually usually, when I'm truly writing, I almost never use voice dictation. And the reason is the voice dictation is too fast. My thoughts I can't process the writing fast enough to do a good job. It's a different, so the real writing that I do, always done by hand.
You said you think everybody should be doing some writing. What formats do you recommend for, let's say, the layman, the average Joe, who has no writing background, no writing education? What would be your suggestions and the intents of side writing?
I think it's up to the individual. If you don't know yet, just start by doing 10 minutes a day and do it on anything you want. So, and one of the things, and I do this as an exercise for my students, which is what I'll say is, just do 10 minutes a day on anything. They're like, well, I can't think of something. Oh, yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Don't be an idiot. You sit down and you say, I'm sitting here writing for 10 minutes because my writing instructor, Nick Soutter, has said I have to write for 10 minutes. And he's one hell of an asshole because he's making me write for 10 minutes. And I don't want to write for 10 minutes. And yes, I said 10 minutes 3 times.
Concur.
But I have to. And you're not even writing, you see? That's how brilliant what I'm saying is. And then you sit there and say, okay, so I'm sitting here looking at my lampshades, trying to figure out how I'm going to fill 10 minutes. And I've already filled 6 minutes. And I feel like stopping now, but I know if I stop now, Nick's going to sit there and he's going to say, did I actually do 10 minutes? And I didn't do 10 minutes, so I got to sit because this fucking asshole is making me do and keep doing it. What's going to happen is, it's going to take a while. But what's going to happen is you do that time and time and time.
Asshole. It's okay, you can say that.
Hold on. No, I got to figure out the vMix settings for turning off camera too. Just hold on one second. Well, actually, no. We'll keep the camera on. Just mute it. Just mute the. Yeah. But I was going to do a poll in the live chat for having you come back, but unfortunately, I think I know what the answer is going to be.
Turn on the camera. Don't turn on your co-host.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, it depends on the kind of show. This isn't that kind of show. What will happen is, as you keep doing it, you're going to get bored, and you're going to feel like an idiot just writing that kind of stuff out. So you're actually going to start thinking ahead of time what you're going to write for later on that day. And this just, without you even trying, this gets your brain into the mode of thinking about writing and actually being a writer. It just starts with the 10 minutes a day. And what's going to happen is next time at the 10 minutes, you're going to say, okay, I was going to rant on Nick, which is a worthwhile subject. But actually, I have a story that I've been... Yeah. You've done this exercise. I think you've done this exercise, but my guess is you've done it for the wrong reasons. I think you've done it to... I'm going to say, Care Bear, I think you've been doing this for all the wrong reasons. Look at that face. Oh, Jesus, now I know. It's like... You're gonna be in a coma, and they're gonna be sitting there going like, okay, we're gonna review your papers and see what. Ooh, there's a stack of 300 papers. Nick. Oh, Nick's an asshole. Why does anyone even talk to Nick? Wow, I didn't even know you could get a human being into that position. That's just gonna be like, she can draw too. All right.
Oh, you can get human beings and all. Never mind.
Yeah. Especially with a cattle prod. So.
I told you about that.
You threatened me with that. That wasn't a told. That was, Nick, if you don't shut your mouth, this is what's going to happen.
I have that night.
Yeah, well.
Usually get that out.
Yeah. Well, no, that's believe me, that's on a scale of 1 to 10 of scary stories I've heard coming from you. That's about a 7.5. But we got to talk about. There's actually some really great.
Heels at night, wasn't I?
I'm sorry, what?
That's really serious. I wasn't wearing heels at night, was I? Because that sounds really serious.
I wasn't there. You were just telling me about it. I didn't ask the heels question.
That was a different night.
Wow, that's what's scary. Is you have enough of these nights that you actually you get confused between. Okay, that's good to know. That's good. Remind me never to piss you off again. So yeah, it's a little late, I suppose, but all right. So I think that's just it's a great way to get you primed, and it's a great way to just get you. It's like anything else; it's a skill. Oh God, now of course there's where you went with the word primed. Okay, yep, this is. I will say this: like a week ago, we actually did cover our first dumpster fire, and we screenshotted it. It was our first real dumpster fire. Somebody had taken a dumpster, lit it on fire, wheeled it out. It was during one of the protests, and I'm just sitting there going like, and we now have literally a dumpster fire. So we're going to meme that, and we're going to be dropping that on the, don't piss off, Care Bear can confirm. So can I, unfortunately.
Care Bears tend to shoot rainbows and unicorns from their stomachs or something.
Yeah, well, what I found is the nicest people I know are the ones you don't want to piss off. It takes a lot to really get there with them, but once you do, Woo! No,
No,
they
no.
yeah, okay, I'm sure you don't. So, I don't know who like slashed my tires and burned my car. That could have been anybody. Actually, given the number of people I collaborate with, and given the nature of the people I collaborate with, that really could have been anybody. It's just stuff could have been. Oh, she will drop you in lava. Yeah.
Hey, there's a reference here.
Okay. And giggle while doing it. I'm not sure I want to know. Not sure I want to know. So that's it. I think that's the advice I'd give, and I think what's going to happen is pretty soon then you start to realize, hey, I have to do this 10 minutes. I could gripe about it, or I could do something productive with it. And then very soon you start to get productive with it, and then you start worrying about actually doing it better. And after that, you're going to start to enjoy it, and then you're going to want to expand it to 15, 20, 30. So what I just tell people is, and the other question I get is, how do I know when I'm a writer? And that's a fair question, actually. And we had talked about, even Hemingway had imposter syndrome. I mean, there's a lot, most writers have always felt that they're not really writers yet. And with most other jobs, if you're a lawyer, you know because you passed the bar and you're given a license. A mechanic is given a license. There's so many ways to know when you're in a certain profession. As a teacher, you're given a license. How do you know as a writer? I will tell you this: I've met published people who are not writers. In my view, they are not. I'm sorry. That's my as a determination. No, they're not a writer. They can regurgitate. They can do a number of what they have some skill sets. J.K. Rowling is a writer, but she's not a particularly good one. She is a spectacular storyteller. The stories that she crafts are people will be telling those stories 200 years from now. That's my view. That's my view on her storytelling ability. Writing is something different, and if you take a look at her writing, especially towards the last few books, it wasn't, it left a lot to be desired. But so how do you know?
Patronus is a hedgehog.
What? A Patronus is a hedgehog? Your Patronus is a hedgehog.
Is a hedgehog, yes.
That doesn't surprise me, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad
It
thing.
should surprise you. It's ridiculous. I'm not a hedgehog.
That's
No.
I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that it could be used to crucify me.
It could.
It will, actually. I think is so.
With the spines of a hedgehog. Oh no, I'm a hedgehog.
You're a hedgehog. Yep. I think this is we're gonna bring the polls back, and we could just do the poll right now. One if Karis is a hedgehog. Two if she's not a hedgehog. We can just drop that in the live chat. We'll put the polls back up, and you can actually see the polls. But for now, I haven't turned the polls on for this. I didn't think this was going to be a hedgehog / this is just turning into like a poll fest here. So, and we've got a 3, of course. Already we have a 3. Can't go anywhere these days. So I think writers inherently have a tremendous lack of self-worth and understanding of what. So what I say is, if you can do 10 minutes a day for a year, you're a writer. That's my view.
Or is this a description of the profession? Because that seems like a broad brush statement.
Okay, what was the statement I made? I don't remember what I said 30 seconds ago.
You said writers have a distinct lack of self-worth?
Okay, yeah. So if I want to parse that, it's been my experience that in general, a lot of writers have issues. I shouldn't say with self-worth, but a lot of writers have are constantly questioning: am I really a writer? Do I have value? What is the value in what I'm contributing? And I don't think I've ever really met a writer that I respected that didn't actually have that as well. One of my best friends has a MFA in literature in writing from Emerson, and she's constantly questioning. I was just like, oh my God, she destroys me. If it was her and I in a writing contest, I'd get completely obliterated. And she's just like, I don't really know if I'm a writer. So it's like, oh. But I think most artists do feel that. I think there's an inherent sense of.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I was going to go there too. I was sitting there going like, you know what? Since you're getting all smarmy on my ass, about, because I've seen you do some really impressive work. You're like, no, it's not that good. It's like, because we also all see our own flaws more than we see, but that's what makes us good, unfortunately. But it's also what means we suffer. Which gets into, do artists need to suffer to be good? And I don't think they have to be, but I think the vast majority of the ones who are good do, because that's what drives them to be good. Because they see their
those
faults.
in the audience who know me know that I've painted a couple things.
And I think your paintings are spectacular, and every time I say, and you see, and there it is. So we now have a case study in exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just writers, but yeah, and there's a lot of, and I think this is going to be a long series. We're going to talk about drafting. We're going to talk about character sketches. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. But talking about the imposter syndrome and or this, do you really know what you're talking about? Especially when it comes to anything artistic. That's always a tough.
Imposter syndrome.
You wouldn't know. Okay, wait. You wouldn't know anything about. So you don't have imposter syndrome. So let me get this straight. You have imposter syndrome about your imposter syndrome. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like. Other people have so much better imposter syndrome than I do, man. I just can't even do my imposter syndrome right.
He was talking about Hemingway.
Yes, I was.
He was trying to reassure me that something. Then he mentioned Hemingway. It's like, well, I can't be compared to Hemingway. And he said, you have imposter syndrome about your imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Don't worry, I would never compare you to Hemingway. I mean, let me rephrase that, because I think that may not have come out quite the way I would have wanted it to.
That's all right.
Oh. Oh no! Oh boy! All right. Well, so anyways, I think that answers the question. I don't know, and we had a few other questions, and I've gone over. I've sped past through the live chat. I do apologize. So we have a whole bunch of, my first editor begged me to write. Let's see. My first editor. This is Janny Morgan. My first editor begged me to for a year to write from. Before I could believe my writing was worth it. That job lasted 16 years. It's an interesting relationship between a writer and an editor and their agent. Agents less so, especially nowadays. The publishing industry's changed a lot over the last 15, 20 years for a lot of reasons. Some of them good, most of them not.
That you should be taking approximately 80% or so of your editor, or in this case, manager's opinions.
Yeah, that's my rule of thumb is if I have an editor who's going over my work, my ballpark is that about 80% of what they say I agree with. If I'm agreeing with 100% of what they say, the chances are I am subjugating my will to theirs. I've overvalued their work. When I have an editor and I'm agreeing with everything they say, I start to worry. I really start to worry. On the flip side, if it's much less than 80%, if it's
cattle prod conversation.
That was the cattle prod conversation. You see, you do remember it. There's the Captain Morgan. Yeah. So that's it. If you're following less than 70%, well, yeah, 60-70%.
Out the cattle prod.
That's what brought out exactly. Yeah. I know you're trying to remember it. I'm trying to forget it. If you're doing less than that, they're not offering anything constructive. They could also, by the way, you could have the best editor in the world, 10 times better than you are a writer. But if you're looking at what they write and it doesn't resonate with you and it's not working for you, even if all their comments are 100% valid and you're just too stupid to realize it, if you're rejecting 60% of them, they're not really, the relationship isn't working. It's a relationship. It's not and you should have an editor who you trust enough that you like what they're saying enough that you're accepting more than 60 or 70% of it. But if you're accepting much more than 80%, I start to worry that you're just like, oh wow, I'm just going to do whatever they say. This should be your work, not theirs. So that's I shoot for 80%. When I say shoot for me, it's not a. If I'm accepting about 80%, that's how I know I found someone I trust.
So you should like what they say. You're looking for a yes man.
If I was looking for a yes man, you would not be here.
That's true.
Yeah, the last time
I
you
give him
agreed
so
with
much
anything.
hell.
Yeah, last time. Yeah, I think we're on the same page, so to speak.
If you guys saw
About.
the lists I give him,
Oh dear Lord. Yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
do this, do this, do this, do this, 1, 2, 3, 4 through 15 by Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Furball knows my lists.
I do well, and to be fair, I think I do agree with 80% of it. I just ignore 90% of that 80% because no,
Can
and you can't make me.
confirm.
You can't make me. That's it. That's all. I'm just not gonna.
Can't
Can't make me eat my vegetables. Oh, so so that's it. So now we do have unfortunately he who shall not be named, who actually we refused to name him anyway for a very long time, even when he had a name you could say, but just because he's Kaiser
You can call
Soze,
him
he's the unnamed
Titan.
Titan. Yeah, I'm sure he loves that. Um, Titan's having terrible lag, but he's in the eye of a storm right now. I've heard that there's like some weather somewhere down south, so I guess he's having issues. So yeah, that's my rule. I mean I'm not shooting for 80%, but that's how I feel comfortable when 80% of what I hear resonates with me. I'm like, okay, that's what I want around me, and that's usually also even when we have somebody on in time. That's you appear to be the exception. I agree with more than 80%. I follow less than half. So it balances out, maybe.
Indeed. So, what other percentages might you have heard around the writing communities? Have you heard some of those bandied about?
Oh, geez. Um,
And what are the
other
reasonings behind them?
other
And
percentages.
the
I
reasonings behind the differences. And the I'm sorry. Proceed.
Wow. Yeah. That's unfortunately that's kind of like how my mind works. So we're gonna have to be careful that we're gonna have to like smack each other down. It's like nope, bad. Um, so other percentages. I don't. You know what? My brain's not come. I know I'm sort of thinking of. I mean, I'll say this is just for the publishing industry. Only 1 in 5 books makes back the money that was put into making it. Only 1 in 5, and actually, it's roughly the same for the movie industry, which is really interesting. Only 1 in 5 movies actually makes back. They're banking on the blockbusters. That's where they try to make back all the money that they've lost on the other 4. That causes the industry to shift wildly and unpredictably because they're chasing the new thing. A publisher, the agents that you want are usually the ones who are in New York or Los Angeles. There are good agents who aren't in New York or Los Angeles, but they can't do their jobs as well if they're not there. And the reason part of the job is going in, having lunch with the publisher, and saying, "What is it you're looking for this week?" And yes, it changes week to week. I knew a guy who had written a book, and all of us had read it. Well, we skimmed it. We had read the first chapter. We're like, okay, because he's a friend, we'll skim the rest. But that's about it. Wasn't we didn't think it was, there was all sorts of issues with it, but he really poured his heart into it and he liked it, and it had gotten an agent, and that thing had languished in obscurity for 5 or 6 years. Then the Da Vinci Code comes out. And publishers start saying, now his book was about a religious detective, a detective who only does religions. He's really advanced in religious and iconography and the whole 9 yards. And all of a sudden, poof, his book gets picked up. And it gets picked up because everybody says, this is where the industry is going. And it's rare that that's really where the industry is going, but they hope that that's where it is, and they hope they can make some money off of it. His book didn't do great. So one of the things they say is, the first book you publish is luck. It's all luck. It's all luck. It's got nothing to do with anything else but luck. We've all seen terrible books get published. A trigger word for me, or 4 trigger words for me: 50 Shades of Grey. I get so triggered by that because I started at a bookstore. Finally, I was like, okay, let's just take a look. I'm glancing through. I was like, this is some of the worst writing I've ever seen. And yet here it is with this.
Not only that,
Yeah.
it goes against a lot of the basic tenets of the BDSM community. Not that I would know.
All right, 1 in the live chat if you believe her that she doesn't know. 2 if you don't believe her that she doesn't know. No, that's true. Well, it's in that sense, it's also a dangerous book because it gives people a false sense of. And I do remember there was a Twitter conversation. Somebody had there was a guy who really he was hardcore BDSM, and he was talking to somebody who was a bit of a poser, I think, and that person was like, "Oh yeah, I'm into BDSM," and it was really, would you do this? Would you do this? Would you do this? Well, let me go ask my partner if I would. It's just like, oh, there you go. You just, if you have to say that, but I do think, yeah, it is what it is, but. I think it was a terrible book, and she just had luck. Now, there are terrible books that we got a lot of twos. We got a lot of twos on that one. Huh.
I think it's a 1 or a 2. Do you believe Karis when she says?
Yeah. I think
1 is yes and 2 is no.
Yeah, I think that's what I recall. I think the jig is up. So. I think, anyways, they say your first book is luck, your second book is skill. If you have any skill, your second book is usually going to be picked up. If your first book is good, somebody will pick it up afterwards. But if your first book sucks, anybody can get a first book published with enough time. It's really time and luck, and it's waiting until the industry moves your direction, because the industry's trying to be nimble. It ain't nimble, but it tries to be, and it just makes it schizophrenic as fuck. Isn't 50 Shades of Grey Twilight fanfic? It was. That's how it started. Of course, it isn't anymore, but that's the original was. Yes. So in terms of stats, there you go. 1 in 5 books. Sorry, only 1 in 5 make back the amount of money that the publishers put into it. Once you understand that influences how you have to approach agents, how they approach publishers. And that's just some basic stuff, and I think at some point we'll cover the industry a bit better. But it doesn't hurt to know those numbers and to realize. Stephen King wrote Carrie, and he had 50, 60 rejections, and he gave up and he threw it away. His wife pulled it out of the trash and submitted it against his will to other agents. He just went back to teaching English. He was an English high school teacher. And Carrie got picked up, and now we have Stephen King. Tom Clancy took 12 years to get Hunt for Red October published. And by the way, Hunt for Red October was decent writing. It wasn't great, but it was decent. But that was actually a really great plot. When you understand what really, and the movie did a decent job with it, but when you understand what was really going on in that book, it was like, wow, this is. Anyways, to get back almost really to the beginning, I think writing is very important. I think technical writing is important. If people can do that well, it's important. I think writing in a journal is important. I think that's how we sort out who we are and what we're thinking. It's also very useful every now and then, because we also retcon our own memories. And every now and then someone will say, well, Nick, it didn't happen this way. I was like, yes, it did. I'll go back to my journal. I was like, oh, shit, they're right. They remember this better than I do. It's like, wow. And that happens. That happens to everybody. But creative writing is, I think, also important. And I really enjoy, I'm probably best at essay writing, just writing short essays. The nonfiction stuff, I do like the fiction, but I tend to be best in, and I used to write actually for featured essays for Gather a long time ago, and that was a thing, and that I really enjoyed. So, but whatever it is, I think people should be writing.
Gather, who are they?
Gather was just Gather was a social media or social, like they tried to be Facebook for writers, really. They said, well, you write on Gather, you can get paid. Very few people ever got paid. Really got paid not so much by them, but by advertisers, which meant that a lot of people who were writing there would write dumpster fire stories to just try to get, and they'd write the most inflammatory shit just to, it turned out the whole community eventually kind of imploded. I was there when somebody wrote a story on how Barack Obama, whose real name, and now I've forgotten what they said his real name was, but Justice Kennedy had agreed to hear. Now, I hadn't agreed to hear. I had agreed to review a petition to get Barack Obama thrown out as president of the United States because he wasn't born in the U.S. And I remember they had written a thing, and I wrote a rebuttal essay in which I said essentially, like, you don't understand. You've already been rejected. This was rejected by 2 previous justices. The reason he's agreed to see it is so he can reject it. Because if he rejects it, or so he can take a straw poll there, and if they agree to reject it, you can never submit it again. they're sick of it, so he's accepting it so that they can reject it universally. And once it gets rejected that way, it can't be resubmitted. Like, no, that's not what's happening. And then 2 hours later, it got rejected universally, and the thing was done. But it was dumpster fires. Dumpster fires, like conspiracy theories. It doesn't exist anymore. But I got my work was frequently taken aside for featured writer, and I got to have like a featured column and all that other stuff, which was fun.
With Gather or with other organizations?
With Gather, with Gather, with other organizations. I don't know. I haven't, like I said. Then after like I said, I got the whole thing with the Sin Eater book. I've had partners in my life, and most partnerships have not ended great. Now, of course, I had a partner for In Time for a while, and when he left, actually he couldn't have been more gracious and more magnanimous, and it was one of those where we just sort of realized it wasn't working, but we were able to be adults. Oh dear Lord, that's a shock. But for the most part, it's been my experience, though, those things. So and the truth is, and this is something that people disagree with, except I guess when they finally really get to know me. But I've had this argument with a whole bunch of people. I am a bit of a misanthrope, and I don't like people in general. I'm not a fan of the species. I'm not a fan of most people I meet. And writing is great because two things. One, I don't have to work with other people. I can do what I want my way, and it just gets done. And sometimes, I'm not perfect. I screw plenty of shit up, but then at least it's on me. It's not on anyone else. And I don't have to engage. And when I wrote The Water Thief, that I would stay in my house for 14 days straight. I wouldn't even go out to get groceries. So my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, would come, grab, bring food in.
These days, that's recommended.
Yeah, nowadays it's like, well, that's why they say introverts are thriving. I've been thriving up until recently, but now it's sort of like I've had no peace from my family. I'm like, they're all locked in this building with me. It's just like, so, I put up the razor wire at the gate but my youngest can just slip right under that, which is a bit of a problem. But we'll figure out. I may get out the Care Bear cattle prod, and so yeah, Titans 14 days amateur. Well, yeah, when you're in college, though, that's usually considered. I mean, now I could do 2 months without. In fact, I've almost just about done 2 months once or twice here. It's a little harder when you've got a family because you do have to go out and do things. But no, I'm not a fan of the species in general for any number of reasons, and it's very hard. Well, it doesn't matter. I wrote a book about writing. It was it was actually a fiction book about a writer living in New Orleans, and it was called Playing God. And the reason is because writing is the closest I think that a human being can get to being godlike. You have a few rules. The only real rule that I consider that you should really probably try to follow is that your world should be internally consistent. But short of that, you're creating an entire world. And even if it's one that's supposed to be recognizable as the world we're in right now, you still create it. And this is the thing, even journalists are creating a world in their writing. They have defined parameters. They have boundaries of how and what they're writing about. And they have a perspective that can change anything. If you say somebody was shot versus somebody was murdered, those are two very different claims. And in some cases, you could easily pick one or the other. Both are defensible. So the will of the writer, even in nonfiction, determines what world people see when they look at this. And you can have the same thing witnessed by 30 different people. And you have 30 different worlds. And somebody who's skilled in reading might be able to really be able to detect it. Other people maybe can't. But you're always building worlds, and there was something I liked about that, and my characters always certainly live, at least in my own imagination, and so it's a playing God, hence ergo, that kind of thing. So she knew what she was signing up for, folks. She knew that when she came here, it would just be listening to Nick rant forever about esoteric. So
I recommended it.
If you want to be God, write a book.
Or paint.
Or paint, actually. Painting is one of the few, and you know this about me too, and I know the lecture I'm about to get, which is probably true, but I always pretend it's not. Always wanted to paint. I think for the same reasons I enjoy writing, and because I have. I mean, the other thing is whether you're writing or painting, you have something in your head, and you're trying to. This is the other thing, and I won't go too far into this, but in terms of like words as metaphors and language as metaphor, um, all communication. You have something in your head. You're trying to communicate it to another person. Language is almost a form of ESP. Imagine if you were the only person who could talk and who could hear in a world filled with people who were mute and deaf. They'd look at you and they'd say, well, how can one of them explain to the other? And they'd see the lips move, but they're like, wow, that's really bizarre. And somehow we're transmitting ideas back and forth from one to the other. Well, it's not. It's just using sound. But the reality is, the better a writer you are, the easier it is for you to transmit both that idea accurately in terms of what that idea is and in terms of what it isn't in shorter and more concise phrases. And that's the goal of writing. And also even to sometimes play with language and make it entertaining, because you can do that too. But the goal really is for me to have an idea, whatever that idea is, and transmit it to you. And sometimes that idea is a picture of something, or it's a description of something, or it's a concept, or it's a story, whatever it is, and I'm trying to transmit it to you. And that's what it is.
Discord.
What? There was a novel. Okay. So, anyways, or a novel on. Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second. You see, I should have just gone straight to. She's giving me shit about something. If I had done that, I'd have heard it right the first time. So, yeah. That's it. So, writing any communication is just an attempt to get an idea that's in one person's head into another person's head. You'll never transmit it 100%. It's always a copy of something, and when someone speaks poorly, someone doesn't make it out or they misinterpret it, and when someone speaks or communicates well, hopefully they get it. And that's the goal. I find that an interesting exercise, and I think painting does the same thing. You see what I did? That's because I'm a professional. Just go right back to the topic. Just saying.
Speaking of, so you are starting this series on writing, on teaching people writing techniques, tips, etc. Some in the audience may not be familiar with you and may be wondering what your qualifications may be to do this. Would you like to clarify some of those?
Yeah. I think that I can do that. Well, that's always tough, also, because as a writer, what constitutes qualifications? We already kind of discussed that, imposter syndrome, the whole 9 yards. I've been writing my entire life in one way or another. When I was a kid, before I could write, I would actually dictate stories to other people, and my cousins fucking hated me. They didn't want to talk to me anymore because if they could read and write, I'd be like, I'm going to tell you a story. You got to write it down. Like, no. And I just loved stories. I loved storytelling. So once I learned to write, now it turned out I was dyslexic. Nobody recognized that. And I had considerable problems in education till towards the end of my high school years, when it was finally recognized that I actually had a bylaw. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't, there was a whole bunch of shit thrown at me about how this was always my fault. And it turned out, no, he actually can't decode words very well, and I can't encode them particularly well either. One of the reasons I use the voice dictation, which has its own problems, as you know. At least I'm not dropping eggplant emojis on people for no reason, but it can get that bad. So anymore. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up and discussing that on our Discord. Hopefully nobody's going to come into the Discord to see that conversation, but because that was real. That actually happened. That actually happened. I'm still okay. At least well, it explains a lot of my weird turns in my relationships all of a sudden that I couldn't understand. I had to, when I learned that, I will confess I had to do a lot of self-reflection about the last few years at places I had dropped the eggplant emoji.
The takeaway from this is symbols are important.
Symbols are very exactly, and just as important, knowing what symbol represents what. Don't drop the eggplant emoji unless you know what you're doing. I'm just saying. So Then I had to get a rundown of like all the emojis. Like, any other emojis you should know about? Oh, Nick, do you know about the peach? No, what's a peach? Oh, dear Lord. Okay. Oh, I suppose that's a bad one too. So at any rate,
No, it's just
yeah. I live and learn. Um, so let's see. I oh I I do think qualifications matter. I think to that end, look, I have a nationally spectacularly well-reviewed book. That doesn't mean I'm qualified to work outside of where that book says I'm qualified to do, but it was a novel. It was also written as a rebuttal to Atlas Shrugged, and it was written actually as an economic. It was a sort of a critique of laissez-faire economics, but that was it was a rebuttal to Atlas Shrugged. So I think while we've all seen things that have been highly critically acclaimed, and we've looked at that and said, "Wow, that was a piece of shit," it at least means I have a seat at the table, and I am qualified to render professional opinions. Not everybody's always going to agree with them, especially when it comes to a more artistic craft. But I've been around the block. I've been doing it for a while. I have two books. Both were actually very well nationally reviewed, and I've written some total, probably about 12, most in various states of, which is another thing. Right? I had written 4 in high school, and I thought this is what everybody did with their spare time. No, it turned out most people were like going to parties, getting drunk, and having a good time, and I'm sitting there writing away, which explains the being a misanthrope. I just never got invited to all the parties, so I was just like, what am I going to do? But I thought everybody did this in their spare time. I thought everybody wrote books in their spare time, and it wasn't actually all that long ago. It was only about maybe 8 or 9 years ago that finally I really wrapped my head around the fact that there are people who actually cannot finish a full book. And I was like, it's not that hard. You just keep working at it, and there is some truth to that. But it also does take being able to keep the entire book in your head at one time. The reason is because it does have to maintain. You have to maintain internal consistency, and so you have to know who the characters are, where they're headed. There have to be these threads. They have to the different arcs of each character, different arcs of the story. And I really am against trying to formalize these things too much and saying, oh, where's your character arc? And I think you should do that on occasion if you're stuck. But it's a tool to get you unstuck. It's not. There's no formula that I think is the only formula that I have for writing is write what you love, write what you know, and write what you want to. And that's the best formula I've ever seen. There are tips and tricks. There are pretty good rules about drafting and rules about how and why to do things certain ways, and I always advise them. But this is, and that was the other thing. Because writing is so solitary, that's one reason why I do enjoy doing these series on writing, and why I always did my workshop on it. So I did a workshop on it. It was called The Business and Craft of Writing. I did that for about 10 years, and the reason was simple. There was a writer named Lori Foose who writes really bizarre stuff. One of the last books that she had written, actually, no, the first book that I had read of hers was about a woman who one day noticed that her uterus had run away, and so she went on to a talk show. They had like a drive to find the uterus, and nobody could find. They were putting it on the side of milk cartons, and it's just she's a satirist. So there was more than a little satire here on a couple of different topics, but that isn't necessarily my kind of work. But she was a great friend, and she really helped me out. She had a workshop, and one of the things, it's sort of like pay it forward. There's a thinking amongst most writers that if you're helping other people, that drains from the total number of writers that, there's only a set number of writers that can get published. There's a set amount of money out there, and you're in competition with all these other writers for it. And it's really not true. And there's also this idea that people are going to steal your ideas. People are going to, you got to be a little careful of that, but very, very little. In reality, ideas are usually about a dime a dozen. In most cases, I've rarely heard an idea that I really, really like. I have on occasion. But in most cases, it's the execution that matters. One of the most famous short stories is about a guy who goes fishing. The guy goes fishing. That's the idea, and it turned into one of the most famous short stories ever written. So I am not overly impressed with, quote, ideas or this or that. I think it's the execution and what you bring to it that makes it unique. That's That's what's important, and that's what I try to help bring out in people, and I'm qualified, presumably.
Fantastic. I do realize we're running short on time. Those who have joined us are probably aware that this is the very beginning of a series. Where do you plan on taking the series quickly in about a minute explanation?
Well, we can go we can go a little over. We don't have to. Jesus, wow, we don't have to go like 60 minutes, like hard stop. No, but this is called in time, not we won't go over time. It's certainly not on time. Um, so, well, you know what? I'd really like to because, like I said, I had some health
I told
issues.
you 1 minute because I know you'll go for 15 if I say 1.
Oh! Ooh, this is so scary. You know me well enough to actually like have actually like almost presentiently like. Ooh, that's kind of meta. I'm a little scared
I took a
now.
list of your times and did an average.
My concern is she's telling the truth. This is my concern, man. Oh dear Lord.
No.
Oh.
No, I'd never do that. Proceed.
Well, okay. I mean, I'd like to have specific topics like drafting. I think a drafting topic is drafting is something that's grossly misunderstood. If you don't draft, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And I've never actually. There's only one writer, and by writer I mean actually anybody who sort of communicated through an art of some kind. So I also include musicians actually in this sense. So in terms of composers, musicians, writers, there's only one I've ever heard of who didn't draft, and that was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the only human being. And the reality is that he actually did draft. He was just able to do it in his head. He didn't have to, but he drafted, but it was in his head, and he could write every note perfectly in his head, then he'd write it out, no mistakes once. What's his name? Garcia, who wrote 100 Years of Solitude, said that he had done that in only one draft. I'm not sure I believe that, and I'm not even sure if that's an accurate quote, but yeah, I call shenanigans. I totally call shenanigans on this, but I'm going to have a shenanigans button that's just going to, it's like every time there's a shenanigan, you just see the meter go up on her, but by this point you wouldn't be able to see her anymore anyway. So, and I'm reasonably sure, I will say this, we'll put it on my side because nobody's coming to see me. People are going to be sitting there going like, oh wow, now this show just got interesting because it's going to be her. I'm not going to cover that face because then all of a sudden people are like, oh, you think I'm going to stick around for Nick? No. So
what you were saying was that you plan to take this topically. We're going to cover different topics on different weeks, and
I think that's a good idea. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So character sketch, but I mean the reality is, you know what? I want people to call in. I want people to be able to ask their questions, and you know we can talk about this. And I hope we get regulars. And I actually do miss doing the workshop, and you know we had regulars there for years, but I had to stop that. So I think this is going to be my equivalent to that workshop. So my hope is that people are going to want to come by, ask questions, think of your questions. We're going to do this at least once a month. You can also we can talk about it on the Discord too. We may even maybe even put our own channel up there if enough people are interested in it. But no, that's it. So I think
you may even see us in voice on the Discord at times.
Yeah. So
come join us.
If you're not going to see her there on her own, if I'm there, you'll see her there because she, for whatever reason, thinks somebody should be busting my balls. I have no idea where she gets this idea from. I've been nothing but sweet and charming, at least like 5% of the time that I've known her, and she somehow is. Yes. Oh, yeah. You're not even going to give me the 5%, are you? You're not going to give me the 5%, are you?
Sure.
I don't believe that. Yeah, just do a 1 if you believe it, and 2 if you don't. But I think by this point you've lost enough polls in this one. Don't. I know where your mind just went with that one. Just get out of the gutter and just zip it. Just stop. That's it. So I think I look forward to. So what are they talking about on the chart show or car show today? Yeah. That's you see. Yeah, I saw that.
You have me pronounce my name at the beginning of the show, and you can remember it by the end.
Yes, I forgot. We'll say that was what happened. I forgot. My bad.
Oh, the after show's going to be lit.
Oh, there's an after. Ooh, Jesus. Yeah, I don't know if I can do the after show. Yeah, you know what? We're all going to go to the Discord. We're going to go to the Discord and maybe just shoot for about 5 minutes. We'll try to meet in the Discord, and I'll be there. Chorizo,
Look in the side chat.
churro.
BM Furball has the correct pronunciation. There are about 4 pronunciations. Again, Steve McRae has about 10 that I think he's written down.
Well, good on him. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Steve, look in the side chat. Carrots.
I'm going to be with Steve on this one, but that's just going to be me. I mean, I can't believe he would disrespect you that way, and I would. Well, no, I'd probably disrespect you that way. In fact, I have a couple of times. I still just can't. I can't. I'm sure there's something very wrong with him. I'm just here. Also
it's okay,
pronounced
Steve.
man.
I'll send you clams later.
Oh, all right.
What that's about.
So, it was really Jimmy Carter. Oh, dear Lord. All right. Well, so I think that's it. Unless you can think of anything else, I think that's sort of what we're looking to do. I hope you guys will join us. So at this point, it looks like it's going to be the 4th Thursday of every month. We're gonna do this. It's going to be the it could be the on writing show. It may be Nick getting his getting whacked over a stick repeatedly. Macaris show. Could be any number of shows. Who knows? Who knows what you're gonna tune in to see? But yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do. And I'm hoping that people who really are interested in becoming better writers will come in and ask the hard questions, and we'll figure out where to go from there. This will be as much the audience's show as anyone else's, and that's my hope is people just come in and say, hey, look, because I've been
bring
around
in
the
the
block.
questions for Nick. I mean, we're all about making him squirm on here. Any help with that is greatly appreciated.
I'm just going to make notes about some staffing changes. Just hold on a sec. I want to make sure I don't forget this one. Of course, the problem is I'm going to write down the wrong name, and then I'll be like, oh, I was supposed to get rid of someone called Charisse. Do you know who that was? It said Charisse, but I don't know who that is. All right. Well, I think that just about covers it for today. But that's it. We'll be on the Discord. We're going to hang out after the show. Anybody who wants to learn from at least somebody who's been around the block and done it before, and I really enjoy talking about it. And as long as you're not going to send my name to Charles Manson, who fortunately is dead, I was like, I shouldn't have to be as relieved as I am that he's passed on. But Bill Cosby isn't. At any rate,
Send us number to Bill Cosby. Got it.
Please don't send my stuff to. Well, Bill Cosby returns it unopened. Just how bad is that? Even Cosby wouldn't open it. At any rate, so we'll be in the live chat, and then if you guys have any questions that you want to discuss, anything you want to talk about, just the craft of writing, the business, getting an agent. That's another thing I often talk about, how to identify good agents. Do you want to self-publish under certain sets of circumstances? What's best practices for fiction, nonfiction? If you have a guest co-host who's annoying the living shit out of you, how do you deal with that? Now, I'm not saying I can advise on that. I'm obviously very poor on that. If any of you have advice on that, please come in and let me know. I would be very glad to hear your advice. I keep getting my head in well in over my head on these things. So come on in and bail me out. So is there anything else you want to say before we go? Yeah, she's thinking. Oh dear Lord. Okay. I'm gonna bail straight to the credits like long before. All right. So good night, all. Thank you all very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you. And think about your writing questions. Bring them by and come up by the Discord and we'll chat. All right. Now my guess is that this time I got the mic off correctly.
Well,
We're gonna.
if you didn't, everybody's laughing at us right now.
Well, I'm gonna have them all laugh at you, and we'll tell them it's your fault.
Yeah.
They can still hear us. Yep, they're laughing at us. They're laughing at you. All right. Good night, all.
Best ending ever.